Welcome back, everyone. Middays with Gerard and Rhino on this Monday, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Joining us now in the studio, Senator Kevin Blackwell. He represents District 19. That covers DeSoto and Marshall counties. He's the chairperson of the Senate Medicaid Committee. Good morning there, Senator. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Gerard. Thank you for having me. I'm wondering, am I the fodder?
No, sir, you're the facts. But, you know, with respect to government, that could kind of go either way sometimes, it
Sure
feels
could.
like. I know you have been sort of buried, if you will, in this medical marijuana program, and that you and I were just talking off the air. I'm not sure you anticipated that this time last year, that you were going to be so heavily involved and sort of tapped over on the Senate side to work with Representative Yancey on the House side to come together and figure something out after the Supreme Court struck down the ballot measure. And, of course, we have hashed that out numerous times on the program and in the news media in the state. Where do we stand right now?
Well, we have an agreement. I think everybody has seen the draft that's been circulating. Well, we wanted to be open and transparent with what we're trying to do. So right now, the way it rests is it's basically on the governor's lap. We've requested the speaker and the lieutenant governor visited Friday with him, requested a special session, hopefully for October the 1st, this coming Friday.
October 1st. Okay. Well, last time we had Representative Yancey, he kind of handicapped it, thought it was a high probability we'd get in session in September, but October 1st isn't far off. Do you, at this point, do you have a sense of whether or not the governor will go ahead and do that?
In my conversations with the governor, he has indicated that he would certainly consider a special session if we had agreement between the House and the Senate, and we pretty much have an agreement on a bill.
Okay. Well, help us out with what were some of the kind of notable provisions that you guys had to plow through that now have been resolved that our audience would be interested in.
Well, some of it had to do with the pretty much the how much of a product could you have. I think 65 had 5 ounces. We've reduced it to 4 ounces. And we tried to find a way in which we could equate a flour versus a concentrate versus an infused product across the spectrum because we have some limitations on what the patients can purchase.
Okay.
So we ended up borrowing from some other states and what we're calling the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Equivalency Units. And it seems in our research that eighth of an ounce, which is 3.5 grams, is the most common purchase. And what some other states have done, they've used that to equal 1 unit, and that also 1 gram of concentrate equals 1 unit, and 100 grams of infused product equals 1 unit. So that way we can now spread that out across those 4 ounces and come up with 32 units a month that a patient may purchase. And so that would include any combination thereof. They could get flour, they could get concentrate, they could get infused products when they go.
Gotcha.
So that was one issue. Then also coming up with trying to find a way in which Mississippians could actually participate. And so we created a couple of tiers called micro cultivators and micro processors.
Okay.
And to qualify, you have to be a Mississippian with at least 3 years of residency. And those fees for those licenses are significantly less than what the fees are for, let's say, the big boys, if you would. And then from there, we also developed 5 tiers of covering what we call canopy. And canopy is the square footage in which the live plant growth occurs. So we have different, 5 different tiers set up based upon that canopy coverage from anywhere up from 5,000 to up to 100,000 square feet. And then the fees associated with those increase accordingly.
All right. So is it also true that the plant must be grown indoors, is what I read? So explain that. What does that mean exactly?
That's correct. It's got to be grown indoors. So basically it's going to be grown hydroponically, if you would.
Yeah.
We visited a couple of other states, talked to people in the business, and even those folks recommended we not do outdoor growth. And the reason for that is, one, the contaminants, the fungus, the pollutants, insecticides, and things of that nature. Plus, you also have the opportunity for theft occurring in some of these larger fields.
Yeah.
And then you're also exposed to the weather elements. So let's say, I know we had a lot of rain that damaged a lot of our watermelon crop here. Well, if somebody were to invest in cannabis, have several 100 acres of this stuff, and the hurricane come through, well, they just lost everything. So economically, it doesn't make sense either. So
okay. So you don't see that as a big setback. I mean, have you heard any squawks or grievances from folks that had planned to grow outdoors? Have they expressed their discontent with that?
I've heard a little bit. There are folks that thought they were going to grow. They got 70 acres and they're going to grow pot on it and become millionaires. And they can still grow pot. They just have to be indoors.
I got you. So they'd have to make some investment in structures that, I mean, is there some sort of legal guidelines or technical definitions on what constitutes indoors?
We just have an indoors like facility, and I guess for finer tuning of the regulations, that'll come from the agencies.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, and so let's talk about the tax mechanisms, how that shaped up.
All right. On tax, we have 7% sales tax at the point of sale at the dispensary. And then most states have some sort of excise tax, and we were looking to put an excise tax as well, but wanted to stay, didn't want anything more than 5%. And so when we started taking a look at how other states do this, one state does it by the THC content, and I believe that's Indiana. That's fairly complicated because you have a variety of products that are going to have different levels of THC, and all that tracking seems a little bit excessive. So we took a look at states that had the other states, the majority of states do it at the point of sale. And we were looking to do it more at the cultivator processor level. And so when we're taking a look at what does cannabis sell for in these dispensaries, it's kind of all over the board based upon the THC content. But about $300 seemed to be the average. And so we put a $15 an ounce excise tax on that, which equates to about that 5% tax threshold we were looking at.
Yeah. All right. So the excise tax is, of course, a tax that's levied on a quantity, a volume in that case.
That's correct.
And this will just all go into the general fund, right? So
yes,
it's a little different than 65, in which case all the taxes stayed with the Department of Health, which was the agency that would have been charged with administering the program. That's 65, the way it was drafted.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure if the taxes were going to remain there, but certainly all the fees were going to remain there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that it was described as a tax. It was just a 7% fee, if you will.
Well, 65 allowed the Department of Health to apply a tax up to that 7%.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks for that clarification on that. So, all right, so what about zoning? That was a big issue, too.
Zoning, the cultivators and processors can be in areas that are zone ag or industrial, and the rest in commercial zones.
Yeah. All right. And so a city, though, has the option, right?
Yeah, then the opt-out. I know that's your next question. Yeah. For the opt-out, first of all, upon passage, everybody is in. And then we have given the counties and municipalities the unilateral authority to opt out within 90 days of the program. And so sometime within that period, if they choose to opt out, they'll need to make notice to the public, let them know they're going to have a meeting, and they can do that at one of their board meetings. If they do opt out, then the citizens have an opportunity to opt back in through a referendum process. which would require 1,500 signatures or 20% signatures of the voting population, whichever's less.
Gotcha. Can you hang around with us? A couple more questions?
Yes, sir.
We got Senator Kevin Blackwell in the studio talking about medical marijuana. Stay with us. Middays will return. Monday, we've got Senator Kevin Blackwell in the studio. He represents DeSoto and Marshall County. He chairs the Senate Medicaid Committee, but most recently, he's been heads down working on this medical marijuana legislation along with Lee Yancey over there in the House of Representatives. So we were talking about the zoning situation. Explain that again for our audience, what those provisions entail.
With the cultivators and the processors, they'd be zoned in ag or industrial locations, and the other companies would be in commercial areas.
Yeah.
And there's some distance that we put between the dispensaries and churches and schools and daycares and things of that nature. I think it's 1,000 feet. And then there's also 1,500 feet between dispensaries, so that they're not all clustered in one part of town or all in one strip mall.
So with respect to a municipality, they have 60 days from passage of the legislation, right?
90 days.
90 days. I don't know where we got 60 from.
Well, it was originally 60 days for several versions of the draft,
okay.
And then at the end we ended up moving it to 90 days.
Okay, and so that would be something that the municipal government would essentially enact. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
They could unilaterally opt out if they so choose within that 90-day period. Okay,
and then the people, the citizens of that municipality, then have the option of initiating a referendum to essentially reverse that, repeal it.
That's correct. And if it passes, they're in.
Yeah.
If it does not pass, they'll have to wait 2 years to do another referendum.
Gotcha. So are you hearing any rumblings that you can share with us on that now that it looks like we're probably going to get a program? Have you heard any municipality say, yeah, we're going to opt out of this thing right off the bat?
I have not heard from any municipality. No,
okay.
Sir.
All right. So that's an interesting approach to that. Is there I probably know the answer to this, but is there a reason why the legislature, you guys decided to insert that sort of opt-out provision in the bill?
Well, we thought that there might be some consideration from some folks who may not want to participate. They have philosophical differences. So we had met with the MML. That was a request that came from them, so we decided to honor it. When you take a look at the vote, though, out of I think we have 1,776 precincts, only 9 opted out of 65 or 65A.
Yeah.
So that's not many in the state. So if I were municipal official, I might take a look at how my people vote.
Yeah, I understand. Got it. Well, all right. And then we talked about the tax provisions. What are we missing here? What else we need to talk about that is worth noting with respect to how the sausage was made here? I don't know how else to describe it. I mean,
I'd have to get Senator Polk to help me with that. We tried to be as do the best we could to make this a medical bill.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Oklahoma had a lot of criticism for was how open it seemed. So when we started drafting ours, we wanted to make sure that the patient had a bona fide relationship with their provider.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma, they got billboards that say, call this number, or go on the internet, answer a few questions. It's like a erectile dysfunction medication. Just answer something, we'll get a doctor somewhere to certify you. We don't want that here. So you have to go in to see a provider, and the providers are physicians, nurse practitioners, advanced nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, and optometrists are the folks that can certify you. You have to go in. They have to do a history on you. They have to also include your mental history. You have to do a follow-up visit within 6 months to see the efficacy of the use of cannabis. So, again, we tried to make this as close to truly medical as we could.
Gotcha. So, what about with respect to zoning? What was the latest with respect to the distance that a dispensary, a treatment center can be from schools, churches, et cetera?
That's 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
Between that and then 1,500 feet from each dispensary.
Okay. So it's not to have like a concentration of
That's
them
right.
in an area like that. So I want to say that those are some details that were not included in Oklahoma's bill. Is that right?
I don't know about Oklahoma's bill.
I just know they've got like way more than they ever thought, and that I think they had a little regret on that. Some of folks did.
Well, we don't have a cap on our licenses.
Okay,
but so we're going to let the market play out.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, all right. The question is, when will this go into effect? It depends on when it gets signed by the governor.
Yes,
right?
sir. It'll go into effect upon passage.
Yeah. So if you guys get together, say next week, it maybe only take a day or two.
It should take only a day or two. I know we've talked to our side. We have the votes. I believe the House has spoken to their membership. They have the votes. So there still may be a few things we're tweaking. But as far as the major issues, I think we're pretty much settled on.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that you guys were able to work it out, because I think for a while there it was kind of some tough going. Looked like there were folks were at odds and couldn't really come up with something that could get a consensus, at least to the extent that it could pass. But the governor said, I ain't calling a session until we got the votes, and I certainly don't think that's a bad approach there. I think that's the prudent thing to do. We don't want to spend money if we're not going to get anything done. So, but all right, well, we'll stay tuned for that. I got to ask you while you're here about another big issue that is likely to be taken up again in the next session, and that is the Speaker's tax bill and tax reform. As you know, I shouldn't say he, but hearings were conducted 3 weeks or so ago down at the Capitol. Senator Harkins over on the Senate side, he pledged back in the session when the bill came over from the House, hey, we're not really where we're comfortable passing this thing. We need to know more about it. We're going to have some hearings and do some investigation and data gathering. He did that. I was honored to have the opportunity to testify as well down at that. It's 2 days. So right now we got a bill to pass the House. It looks like the House is overwhelmingly in favor of it. Not really sure where the Senate or the Lieutenant Governor stand at this point. What are your thoughts on that, Senator?
Well, I'm not on the Finance Committee, nor was I on the Special Committee to take a look at the tax package. Conceptually, I like the idea. How we get there is a whole other matter. I'm a little concerned about taking basically what's essentially $2 billion of our revenue and eliminating it, not being sure how we're going to replace that.
Yeah.
And every day there's another agency wanting more money. Everybody's talking about more money. We're trying to give the teachers another pay raise. We certainly want to be able to get them up to the at least the average of the Mid-South level. But there's a whole host of other folks that also we need to take a look at their salaries and raise them. So
yeah,
it's an interesting concept. Again, conceptually, I like the idea of eliminating the tax, but how are we going to generate the revenue to support the state? Yeah,
the governor actually said that when I interviewed him at the Neshoba County Fair, he indicated that a teacher pay raise was a top legislative priority for him, and he was looking at $3,000 over 3 years. And as you are well aware, that cost about $50 million per $1,000 raise. Right. When you look at all the PERS and all the other burden associated with pay increases,
and that's an ongoing expense. Yeah. It's not a one time.
Yeah. So you got that going on. That costs money, and as you said, that is a recurring expense. And then you got the push to eliminate taxes, which is potentially eliminating some revenue. So we've sort of got some I guess diametrically opposed matters going on, and that's what you guys will have to get together and work out. But I'm glad to hear you certainly agree with the concept of it. And again, the devil's in the details, and I know you guys will be back in session here pretty soon.
Won't be long.
I know. We got about a minute left. What else is on your high priority list there coming up?
Just hoping Ole Miss beats Alabama this year.
I'm all for that too, Senator. That sounds good. All right. Well, we got to get you back on and talk about Medicaid stuff here pretty soon as well.
All right, we will be having some hearings this summer or this fall now on
good.
Medicaid.
Look forward to that. Senator, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep. We'll be right back here with Midday. Stay